I've been noticing that I haven't been hearing much as it has to do with the students' the active involvement in sports, co-curricular, and other areas. Are those being considered on stream in terms of evaluating schools, inspecting schools in those areas as well, or will it just be strictly academic?
Okay. My comment is directed to Dr.
Can you just remind us of your name, please?
My comment is directed towards...
Can you remind us of your name?
I'm Jennifer Lee, Melrose Primary and Junior High. As a principal, I am concerned about funding in my institution. And I am thinking that it might not be such a bad idea if principals can get the support from the private sector, as is done in the case with NCB here, where they are encouraging, hear me out, where they are encouraging certain subjects. But if it is properly managed, for example, we have problem recruiting very good math teachers, science teachers, music teachers, those areas. If we could get the private sector to form linkages with the Ministry of Education and it is properly managed, can you imagine you have some very good chemistry lab, physics lab, so on in your school, and you draw on the resources within these firms, say for example a Grace or some of these institutions or companies that have very good persons that we don't have the ability to get. You can imagine the productivity in another 10, 20 years in Jamaica if we could get this thing properly managed. Wherever the reward is, persons are going to tend to go there and you're going to get the results there. If we reward the sciences and the math and the music, then we'll get the results, in addition to your basic core subject as you were talking about. Thanks.
Before we go back to the panel, your comment on the difficulty of recruiting certain categories of teachers suggests to me an incongruousness, because we heard the minister talk about holding teachers to higher standards, and his counterpart, the opposition spokesman, referred to the importance in comparative educational systems in other countries, the importance of recruiting the top of the cohort into education. And you see, I am burdened with economics, which limits your perspective in one particular sense. It seems an obvious incongruence to want productivity that is 100% of the private sector, ethical standards that are 110% of the private sector, but your goal is to pay at 80% of the private sector. That can't work. You get what you pay for. Okay, panelists, anybody want to respond to any of what has been said so far, starting with Basil?
I'd like to agree with Hopeton Henry and the education officer to my right as it relates to taking into account the environment of the student and not just focus on the teacher. But in saying that, I think you can still evaluate performance while taking that into account, because all of us here, we understand that there are a number of factors: the parent, the community the child is from, whether or not the socioeconomic background of the family, whether the child is properly fed, their exposure at an early age, and so on. All of these contribute to the performance of that student. But there is a quadratic equation, but there's also the regression. And the regression, these are a number of variables, and if you regress them, one of the more significant variables in the outcome, the performance of that student, is that of the teacher quality. And so if the teacher is willing, and so in the measurement, as I said in my earlier statement, it does not mean that all students are going to graduate at 90%. I use 75 then. But what it means is that you can evaluate a teacher based on his or her ability to improve that student's outcome from 50 or to 50 plus X. and then you can grade the teacher based on that, and you can evaluate and designate the school in a particular category based on that. So I don't want us to be resistant to evaluation and feel that we're beating up in a unjustified manner on the teachers. That is not the case. I'm sympathetic to teachers, I'm supportive of teachers, but if we're going to have improved outcome in education, then we need accountability in all areas. Thank you.
Any other panel members?
I just wanted to draw attention to a few parallel things. In the field of medicine, medical progress is mostly defined by what doctors do. In the field of accounting, financial matters and accounting for them are mostly the responsibilities of accountants and financial managers. In engineering, a field with which I'm very familiar, when something fails, the ultimate responsibility is the engineers. This building, if it is poorly designed, from an aesthetic point of view, the responsibility is the architect. The teacher is the architect in the classroom. I happen to be one of those persons who has to make every penny, no, nearly every penny of my living through teaching. If I don't teach, I cannot book pass. I am not saying that this has been an exercise in book passing, although I've been tempted to feel that way, frankly speaking. But it seems to me that we need to accept that responsibility in the classroom is not some sort of a mixture of things. I think it was Dr. Valverde who referred to the first law of thermodynamics this morning, and I applauded right away because I understood exactly what he was talking about. It seems to me that we revel in vagueness when it comes to the teaching profession and when it comes to education. Why is that so? It seems to me if we are not precise as a social science or a social profession can be. Well, there are limitations, right? If we don't strive for precision, we'll never be able to measure anything beyond argument. And this is the basic problem. We can't model in a model, if I might coin an expression. We've got to have clear thinking. Now, if we prioritize, it doesn't mean that other matters are not important. But when you prioritize, you ask yourself what it is we want to achieve. It seems to me we want to achieve Jamaicans, a situation where Jamaicans can deliver in a modern economy.